Hi, scholars. Welcome back and thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited that you're here. We're continuing our discussion on how to structure your literature review. This is a very important topic because you must have a clear understanding of what is required and a solid plan for how you're going to approach your requirements. Today is the final episode, and we're wrapping things up by talking about the summary of your literature review. When we think of summary, we're talking the conclusion of your entire chapter 2. So, to think about this, it is important to highlight the fact that a summary is in itself what it says, right? This is a more strategic part of your paper, and not only that, most people don't realize it, but it's not just a recap of what you wrote, but this is your opportunity to tie everything that you've done within your paper. You're tying everything together, and this reinforce your scholarly voice as well as transition smoothly in your methodology chapter, which is chapter 2, and you also focus on your analysis in that chapter. At the doctorate level, your chapter review should accomplish several things. It should reinforce the major themes and synthesize insights from your review, and it must also re-emphasize the central gaps in the literature. We talked about that in the last part of this episode that we did. It also demonstrates how the literature logically leads to your study. It explains how the literature inform your research questions or hypotheses, which is discussed in chapter 1, and it prepares the reader for your research design in chapter 3. So think of it as the bridge between what we know about the literature and what we're going to do about it through your study. So those two things are very important to remember. So let's talk about what to include in a strong chapter review. Number 1, you're going to restate the purpose of the chapter, right? We want to make sure that we're re-emphasizing that by briefly reminding your reader what this chapter aimed to accomplish. So, for example, this chapter reviewed and synthesized the literature related to psychological autonomy, psychological well-being, and work-life balance, and with particular attention to the experiences of single working parents. So that was my paper and what I focused on. Simple, clear, and focused. That is it. Number 2, you want to highlight the key synthesized themes and not just individual studies. That is something we've been talking about in these episodes. This is important because you're not only repeating your literature review, but you're also reinforcing the larger ideas that have emerged across the literature. So, for example, in my study involving single working parents, some of the major themes that was included in my manuscript: psychological autonomy as a predictor of well-being, the complexity of work-life balance, the unique stressors experienced by single working parents. Again, you want to keep this section high level and integrated. It also needs to be analytical. All right. Third part of your summary. You will revisit the identified gaps that we talked about in the previous episode. Previous part of this episode. This part is crucial because you're not introducing new gaps. That's a no-go. Instead, you want to reinforce the most important gaps in your already identified study and how they connect to each other. Don't go start new things within the summary. All right. So despite extensive research on autonomy and well-being, limited attention has been given to how these variables interact within single working parents populations, particularly when considering the mediating role of work-life balance. I should have said that up front. That was an example of integrating and synthesizing the data. Notice how those statements stayed focused and that they're directly tied to the purpose of the study. Number 4, you justify the need for your study. Again, this is all inclusive of each other. So this is where you confidently make your case one more time. One more time, you all. Why does this gap matter? What is still unknown, Why is your study necessary right now in time and space? This is your opportunity to show your reader that your research is not only relevant, but highly needed. And, your field could certainly benefit from it. And finally, that transition into chapter 3, you need that transition sentence in there, which leads to your methodology for chapter 3. So your ending will guide the reader forward. For example, to address these gaps, the following chapter outlines the methodology used to examine the relationships among psychological autonomy, work-life balance, and psychological well-being in single working parents. You hear how crisp that was? That transition creates flow and it prepares the reader for what comes next. It's just free flowing alignment, all integrated together. Now, what makes a doctorate level summary strong? So these are some of the things to consider. It's concise but analytical. It reflects synthesis, not just summary. And we've spoke about this multiple times. It certainly connects the themes, the gaps, and the purpose of the study. Okay. And it also creates logical transition into the methodology chapter. All right. There are also some common mistakes that I want you to avoid as, you prepare to close out your summary chapter. Number 1, do not rewrite the entire chapter in a shorter form. Don't do that. That's a no-go. 2, do not reintroduce individual studies or things that wasn't already mentioned within your paper. 3, do not add new concepts or citations. And I'm going to repeat that one. Do not add new concepts or citations. 4, do not be vague about your gaps. It needs to be clear and your reader needs to understand what it is that you're trying to convey. You're telling that story. And definitely, number 5, do not need to end abruptly without you transition into chapter 3. So here are some advanced tips that I want you to consider when you're doing your closing argument here for your summary. You presented the evidence through the literature. Okay, that's key. You identified the problem through the gaps. Problem goes back to chapter 1. And now you are making the case for why your study must be conducted. Your reader needs to understand why is it that you are conducting this study. This is the real purpose of this section. And I'll caution you, please ensure that you're following your your template that your professor gives you. And at the end of the day, a strong summary does not end the it does not just end the chapter. It positions it so that your research is positioned, in a logical way for the next step. It's strategically aligned. And if it's done well, your reader should move into chapter 3 already convinced that your study is necessary, relevant, and well-grounded. And here's another way to think about it. While I was preparing this video, I thought about this and I want to share it with you. Chapter 2, think of your literature review as if you're cooking. So chapter 2 is all your ingredients that you need to cook the recipe that is in chapter 3. Okay. Ingredients, chapter 2, the recipes, chapter 3. Chapter 4, it becomes this finished dish, your findings and results. And in chapter 5 is where you consume that dish, you interpret it, you share it, not interpret, but you share it with others, right? Like you want to share those implications, recommendations, and conclusions. I know there was a tongue twister there, but you get the point. It's like cooking. So today we wrapped up this episode on how to structure your literature review. And honestly, this is one of the most significant aspects of your dissertation journey. As I've mentioned, I spent 3 semesters working on chapter 2. It is by far about 80% of your paper. I hope you got something valuable out of this. Well, this part 3, we're at part 4, out of the series. And my hope is that it helps you guide you throughout your doctoral process. If you have questions about chapter 2 or any other chapter, please feel free to reach out on my Substack chat page. There's a chat page on here at Anna Blueprint. You can also find more content on my YouTube channel at the same handle, at Anna Blueprint. Please subscribe, like, and share this video if it add value to your journey and if you think others could benefit from it. You are on track, and remember, small wins today, big impact tomorrow. Again, it is my deepest desire and aspiration for you to go through this process gracefully and don't quit. Keep the faith, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. And bye for now.